In the spirit of eclecticism, I want today to talk about why people used to stand in rows and shoot at each other. Now, if you've engaged with any what I would like to call like old-timey media, you've definitely thought this question before, or at least I would be surprised if you haven't, which is like, why are those idiots standing in a row and shooting at each other? Now, the mainstream explanation, mainstream, I don't know what actual historians have to say, like the explanation that I see commonly purported on the internet, like for example in Reddit posts like this, is that it has to do with like the inaccuracy of the firearms, right? So you needed to put a whole bunch of people with rifles together into a big block, and then they would shoot at each other, and if you dispersed them in some way, individual firearms would be ineffectual. Well, I guess I've always had like a little bit of problem with this, which is just that like you can coordinate like you can mass fire, but you can give a little bit of space between people, and then you minimize the chance that multiple people are hit, right? Like I guess I could understand this being like a reason to not completely disperse your infantry, but the reason that they're so tightly packed, that doesn't feel satisfactory. But then I began to think about this great quote by Napoleon. I'm gonna put it here, and then this set off a chain of thoughts, which is that war for the roughly 200 years between like let's say 1650 and 1850, a little bit more than that, was defined by kind of this rock paper scissors. So on one hand, you had massed infantry, and it started out with just like pure pike based infantry, but then eventually you were able to do bayonets on muskets, so you could kind of have like the best of both an archer and a pikeman in one situation, and massed infantry with pikes or muskets with bayonets are impossible for cavalry to discharge, like to kill, right? Like if they charge them, they just get murdered. And the reason for this is that obviously spears are scary if you're on a horse, but also just that like the mass of the infantry together really negate the main advantage of cavalry, which is just that they're really fast and really huge, and that if you stand tightly together, you remove the mass advantage that cavalry have, and simultaneously you mean that they can't just like run around behind you and stab you in the back. So you develop massed infantry formations so that cavalry can't kill you. But now you have a new problem, right? Which is that like all your people are kind of like crammed together in one place. And so what if they choose to shoot a whole bunch of like bows and arrows into you, or later cannon fire? And so to counter this, you need cavalry, right? Like you need cavalry to harass the bows and arrows and the cannons, and simultaneously you need cavalry to kill people when the infantry gets dispersed. So how do you disperse the infantry? And this is where you just shoot cannons at them. So you have this like rock paper scissors dynamic, right? Where like massed infantry loses to cannon loses to cavalry loses to mass infantry. And so if you're a commander, the way your battle is supposed to go, and this is like the way Napoleon won most of his battles, is that you use massed infantry to take strategic positions and to protect your artillery from cavalry. You use cavalry to try to disperse your enemy's cannon fire and to kill fleeing infantry. And you use artillery fire to try and kill and break up enemy infantry formations so your cavalry can either get to their artillery or kill them. That's it. Like that explains why they all massed up. And so when you see these Revolutionary War era movies or these Civil War era movies, and you have people like standing like tightly together, just remember that the alternative is that they're all killed by horses. During ancient battles, the vast majority of the casualties came after the unit broke and people started fleeing, and these were inflicted by primarily by cavalry, right? So it's like everyone would break up and start fleeing. And so if you're an infantry person, the only way you could survive was by keeping in formation. So that's it, right? Like the whole explanation is just cavalry kills artillery kills infantry kills cavalry. That's it. Thank you.